Hi everyone. My name is Yunus, the president of the Association of Science, Technology, Innovation. Today we are here to talk about the project management competition, which we are doing together with the Project Management Institute, the Malaysian chapter, right? Just to give you a brief background, we already had a project management training done by Dr. Lee. Today we are only going to focus on what is needed for the competition, right? And this competition is done, what do you call, as an extra of the Young Inventors Challenge. So it's not compulsory for you to participate in this competition. But for you to participate in this competition, you must have already been shortlisted for the Young Inventors Challenge. Right? Here are the details. So I'll let you guys go through this so that I won't take too much of your time. This one, I think Dr. Lee has already gone through in the previous training. This part also, I think Dr. Lee has gone through. This part, as Dr. Lee has already gone through with you guys as well. So please go to Dr. Lee's training sites and you'll be able to see all this stuff, right? So today, so these are the entire project management process from requirement, design, implementation, verification, and maintenance. For our competition, our focus is more on the implementation, right? So we require you to give us a report on the implementation of your project, right? And basically, we want to know how you actually went through the process of producing your prototype, right? Which is the main part of the project management competition, right? So let me go through that portion alone very quickly, right? So in your project report, that when you submit to us at the end of the competition, this thing. So in a way, once you have completed your YIC, that means you have also completed your project class. So when you're submitting your YIC report, you should be able to submit the project management report as well. So you can, so if you are participating in this competition, you'll be submitting two reports, which is the YIC report and also the project management report, right? So now for the project management report, you need to have this stuff in your table of content. You have to have an introduction. You have to talk about your project scope. You have to give us your project charter. You have to give us your deliverable-based work breakdown structure. You have to show us your project action plan, and you have to conduct a SWOT analysis on your project management, not on your invention, but on the project that result in your invention. Okay. And then finally, you have to give your recommendation and conclusion. Again, recommendation conclusion here is recommendation on the project. So for example, the SWOT, you'll do a SWOT analysis on how you conducted the project. And your recommendation is, in future programs, how would you improve your project management, right? So that's what we're looking at. So and this entire table of content is all about project management, not about your invention, right? Okay. So now you need to mention your, in your introduction, you have to talk about your problem statement, which will be similar to your Young Inventors Challenge report as well, right? So mention what is your product, provide a short description of your product. So this will be similar to your, what do you call, project, your YIC report. So this part will be the same as your YIC report, okay? Now, this one will be slightly different from your YIC report. You need to talk to us, or you need to show us your project scope, right? So you need to explain your goals of your product invention. You need to explain how you started your project. So this is a little bit more different from your Young Inventors Challenge report. So here you have to say how you started the project. That means, for example, the obvious thing is when you want to start a project, you form a team, right? And you may want to mention how you formed the team, who did you know, what are the kind of skill sets that you're looking for when you form your team. So you may have 5. So you may have one person who's very academically inclined, one person is very hands-on, who can do things, get things done and all that. You know, someone is more a maker guy who can solder and weld and stuff like that. So in your project, you need people with different skill sets. So you need to explain all this stuff, right, on on the side of how you started your project, right? And then mention the needed process to complete your product, and explain the roles and responsibility of each members. So, for example, if you have 5 members, right, as I said, so if one person is very good academically, so that person would be in charge of research, and then you may have another person who is very good in the actual building of stuff. So that person is the person who actually build the prototype. One person who is very good in testing, who is talking to people and all that. So that person would be in charge of, testing the product and stuff like that. So you need to kind of list down the 5 team members, 4 or 5 team members that you have in your team, and what were their responsibilities, right? So this is in your project scope, right? Uh, uh, Now I'm going to talk about what's the difference between your project management report and the YIC project report, which I already mentioned just now. But I'm going to go into a little bit more detail now. For the Young Inventors Challenge project report, you're focused on the product. So when the person is reading, they want to know what your product is, what's the problem statement, how your product is able to solve the problem and make life better for the target group that you are, that your invention is trying to serve, right? But in the project management report, on the other hand, we are looking at the process. So in a way, we are not interested in your product per se, but we are interested in how you arrived at the product, meaning how you actually built it. Like what was mentioned before, you formed a team, a team with different skill sets, and then what were the processes that you went through to actually come up with the product. But that one, as we go through this training today, you'll be able to understand what I mean by focusing on the process to come up with your product. So let's look at this a little bit more. In other words, let's look at the process, right? Now, before you start any program or project, you need to have a project charter. So a project charter, in a way, explains your entire project in a nutshell. So this is something that you do at the beginning, right? So this is something that you do in the beginning, and you are guessing the kind of problems that you'll face, the kind of issues that you'll face, and how you're going to solve the problem. So in a way, it's initial planning document, right? That will help you with your planning to come up with your product. So number one is, in this project charter, you need to have your project overview, where the obvious would be the project aims to produce a product that will help, say, the poor make more money, or it'll help the disabled use the public facilities better, or stuff like that. That's about your product, right? So it's very short, could be 1 or 2 sentences explaining what your product is about, right? And what the project is, meaning what the project is about, i.e. to produce that particular product that solves that particular problem, right? And then your project approach, you may talk about what is your approach. So for example, if your product requires you to go and buy stuff or get new things, then you have to mention, or it needs collaboration of outside parties like universities and all that. You need to mention about that here. Or if, let's say, your project use existing facilities in the school, you can mention this. So that you can say, like, for example, the project uses existing facilities which we have in the school, which is blah, 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 and also existing skills that you have in the school. So for example, let's say in your school, you have a teacher who's very good, who's a maker teacher. That means this particular teacher is a person that teaches welding, for example. So let's say your product requires some welding, you already have a teacher who is able to do that. So you can mention all this, right, in your project approach. Project objectives would be to mention the main activities needed to produce your product, right? Now, each of these steps are the objectives of the project. Now, remember, this is not the objective of your product. So the objective of your product, right, is to produce, to help people, to help, say, the disabled, to blah, 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 right, for example. But here, the project approach is, the objective is, here you may say, the objective is to get a person who's skilled in, say, welding, again, welding, to be able to produce the prototype. So that can be one of the objectives. Right? So the objective is all the process that you have in producing your product, you must mention those becomes your objective, right? Not your product, but the process, right? Major deliverables. So again, the deliverables would be in a way connected to your objectives in that sense. So for example, let's say you were to say to find a person who's skilled in coming up, who's able to weld uh, two different steel components, right? And one of your deliverables can be connected to your objective is to produce the final product, which is welded, for example. So that can be one of your key deliverables, because that's a major deliverable that you have to identify. What are the major deliverables, right? But again, this one, we will show it in the next example. So maybe when you see the example, you'll understand it a bit better, right? So then you have to mention your constraints. What are the problems you think you will face, or things that will not let you do certain things? So for example, one of the constraints is, you can say, again, I'm using the same example of the teacher who's a welding expert. So one of the constraints can be maybe the teacher who's the welding expert is only in school on Wednesdays. So that's one constraint, which means when you want to get that particular teacher to help you with your product, to help you weld the thing together, it has to be on a Wednesday, for example, right? Or the other constraint could be the teacher is always available, but you don't have the welding facilities. You have to go outside to a welding person, an area which has got welding facilities. So that can be a constraint. So that means one of the constraints is you need to get your teacher, who is the welding expert, to the place where there is facilities, and then able to get the job done. So that's one of the constraints. Again, all this is connected. Your objective, deliverables, constraints should link up this way. Okay. And then the risk and feasibility, again, it's in a way connected to your objectives, deliverables, and constraint. Using the same example, which is the welding thing, right? You may say one of the risks is, for example, the teacher, let's say you are 6 weeks, your product, the actual building of your product is over 6 weeks. One of the risks is the teacher falls sick in that 6 weeks. So obviously you need the teacher to be able to do the welding, but what if the teacher is sick on that particular 6 weeks? Then you have to do the welding. So that becomes a risk. So in a way, you need to mitigate those risks by making sure you have another person, right, who is able to weld, for example, right? So these are all the things that you need to have in your project charter. So in a way, it will help you plan your activities to produce your end result. Okay. Now here's an example. Now I'll let you go through this on your own. You can just Google examples project charter, and a lot of this we got it from the internet, right? So you can easily go to internet and do this search, and you can get many, many, many examples of a project charter, right? So you look at those examples and then make it, own it, meaning make it relevant to your project, right? Okay, and very, very important, your project charter must only be 1 page. So let's say if it requires 2 pages, 3 pages and all that, that means your project charter is too complicated, simplify it. That means if maybe you have too many objectives, you need to reduce it, or you need to merge it. Maybe you have too many deliverables, you need to merge it, right? So for now, we want 1 page only. I mean, if you are doing a project which is like building a highway from, say, China to Europe, to London, then yeah, the project charter will be more than 1 page. But for our purpose, because you are producing something only over 6 to 8 weeks, your project charter should not be more than 1 page. And we require that you make sure it is 1 page. Okay. Now, another thing that we need, right, which is step 2 in the process. Just now project charter was step 1. Now step 2 in the process. We need a work breakdown structure, WBS, right? Now, if you do Google, there are many different ways to do this, but for us, we will tell you how we want ours to look like. Now, a work breakdown structure is how to schedule your work. The work breakdown structure outlines and describes your deliverables. So remember, in your project charter, you have the deliverables. Now, the work breakdown charter focuses on the deliverables, right? What you need to deliver in each of the steps. So let's say to produce your end product, from the day you form your team, let's say you have 7 steps: step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, 6, and 7. So you'll have 7 deliverables. So for each of that deliverables, right, you need to outline. And what the work breakdown structure does is to help you deliver your product. So that means there are processes, there are steps that you need to go through to produce your deliverables, right? So let's look at the project charter just now, right? So remember, I told you your objective is connected to your deliverables, connected to your constraint, and connected to your risk, right? Now we are focusing now on the deliverables. These are, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 5 deliverables here. And each of these deliverables will have steps. So to produce deliverable number 1, you have step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And deliverable number 2 is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and so on and so forth. Now for what the work breakdown structure does is it focuses on each deliverable: step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Okay. Now you must have in your work breakdown structure, you must answer the question of what, when, and who, meaning your scope, your time, and the cost. Okay. As I think Dr. Lee, if you go to Dr. Lee's training, he mentioned about this. So I'm guessing you'll be able to understand this, right? Right. So here is an example of a work breakdown structure, which is done in a what do you call I don't know what you'd call this, a flowchart, I guess. Not really a flowchart, I don't know. This is like a diagram, yeah. So in a diagram format, so you have deliverable 1, and you have all the different activities. Deliverable 2, all the different activities. Deliverable 3, all the different activities. Now, of course, this may be difficult because then this activity site might get very crowded, right? So if you do not want to do it this way, you can always do it in a table format, which is like this: deliverable 1, like activity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Deliverable 2, activity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? So let's use the example of the welding person, right? So let's say deliverable 1 is to finish the welding process in your prototype, right? So the key activity would be, number 1 is ensure the time of, say, let's say the welding expert is, his name is, say, I don't know, John, right? So Sir John, Teacher John, right? So activity 1 is to get Teacher John's schedule and set the date. Activity 2 would be to make sure to get the time available for the equipments to be used. So let's say, for example, the Teacher John is available on Monday, but the facilities are available on Tuesday. Then you have a problem, right? Because the facilities is not available on the day that the person who's doing the work is available. So you need to make sure that all the activities sync so that the job is done, so that you are able to deliver deliverable 1. Okay. So you need to again go through all the different deliverables, right? Now, in our requirement, we also got, besides the work WBS, right? We also would like in your report a deliverable based work breakdown structure, right? Which is this. Okay, I think this, yes, sorry, this is the same as before, lah, right? So we need this, right? But we also need actually project management action plan, right? Which is, again, this is based on the deliverables and the different activities. So you got deliverable 1, and then you got activity 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say this is deliverable 1, and then you got 1.1, which is the activity, 1.2 activity, 1.3 is the activity. And then you must put the date in which you are supposed to do the activity, and then this is your planned date, and this is your actual date. So why, maybe it was delayed. Why was it delayed, right? Well, actually, you don't need to explain to us why it was delayed, but as long as we know that there were some delays and all that. But if some major delays, you can explain to us why there was a delay. And then the person in charge. So let's say this is the person in charge in your team, by the way. So let's say you have a team of 5, where the 3 of the team members is Ali, Akau, and Devi. So Ali in your team is in charge of activity 1, Akau and Devi is in charge of activity 2, and all the team is in charge of activity 3, for example, right? And then here's the support required. So in support required, again, in the case of the welding, for example, the support required is to make sure that the person in charge of the key, in your, let's say in your school, you need somebody to support you to open the door to the maker space, the welding equipment. So these are the support that you require, right? Or let's say you need a teacher, or you need whatever, or let's say it's done late at night, you need to make sure that there's guard present because of safety reasons and stuff like that. You need to have that. And then what is the cost, right? So here is, here the first, this one, organized team brainstorming. There's a cost. Let's say you want to put a coffee and tea. You want to have coffee and tea for your teams, and also some guests that you're bringing in for your brainstorming. Then there's a cost here, which is 5 ringgit or 5 US dollars or whatever not. So you can have that. And certain things does not require any cost. So this will help you also understand how much you spend to produce your end product, right? Because when you plus all of this together, you'll get, for me to run this project, to produce the product that then you submit to ASTI, Young Inventors Challenge, required X cost to produce the product. So you'll know in a way, right? And then you can have status and remarks. The basic status and remarks would be completed. So that means your activity 1.1 is completed. Activity 2 and activity 3 is still pending, right? Now, this particular one, it will be ideal if you have it real time, but obviously we can't do it real time, meaning like on a weekly report, we want to see this table, but obviously that will be difficult for us to do. So what we require to do in your report, you need to put in your report 3 different levels of completion for this table. So that means, let's say 30% completion into your report. You need to put that table in your report. And then another table, which is 70% completion. And then another table with 100% completion. So for obvious reasons, let's say for the sake of argument, of course, this is like only 5% complete, but let's say this is 30% complete. The first table will have this one. The second table will have completed more. So this one will be the same, but you would have completed more. And 100%, of course, you have completed everything. So the end is, maybe the last remark would be all projects, all activities completed, product completed, report completed for YIC and submitted to ASTI for judging, right? So that would be probably your last 100% completion remark. Okay. We also require for you to do a Gantt chart again based on your project deliverables, right? So this right is connected to this, right? So this and that has to tally your project action plan and your Gantt chart, right? Now this Gantt chart you have to do at the very beginning, right? So in a way, before you do this, you must already have a Gantt chart, right? So this Gantt chart is a planning document, right? So obviously this will change, but this is real time. So this one, a Gantt chart, is something that you do at the beginning, right? So in a way, these dates, you can see week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. This one is connected to your planned. So these are your planned dates. Your planned dates will show your planned dates here would be your dates in your Gantt chart. So for example, organized team brainstorming is April, right? So here you put organized brainstorming, which is, say, if the week 3 is April, you put April, right? So I think you can understand this. But I think we'll organize a Q&A post this, so that once you have digested this, we can always organize a Q&A for you to ask any questions if you want to for project management, right? Now, this one, a SWOT analysis. Now, in a normal project management, this thing, they may not necessarily require SWOT analysis, but we, in the Young Inventors Challenge project management competition, right? We want you to do a SWOT analysis. But again, this SWOT analysis is not on your product, but on your project management, right? So, for example, your strength in your project management is we had one strength is we had a good welding expert in the school, right? Another strength would be that we had teachers. We had a teacher who is a project management consultant, for example. So he or she, or we had a parent who is a project management consultant, who is able to help you come up with this report, right? So that's a strength. Weakness is, in a way, not necessarily connected to the strength. So your weakness could be totally different, but sometimes it's also connected to your strength. So, for example, let's say, again, using the example of the welding, if let's say your strength is we have an expert welder as a teacher who's able to help us, that's a strength. Your weakness can be we do not have welding facilities in the school. So that's a weakness, right? So you can put that as a weakness, right? And then your opportunities and threat. So in a way, your opportunities, right, is connected to your strength and your weakness. So for example, one of the opportunities that, let's say, your school has identified is, yes, we have a good project person who can weld, who's a teacher, but we do not have what do you call facilities. So one of the opportunities is to build a facility in your school, welding facilities for future programs. Because since you already got the expert, you might as well build the facilities. Then you can put this into the curriculum of the schools. So that's an opportunity. A threat, again, a threat is defined as what could be the threat to your particular program or the project management. Again, another example would be using the welder as this thing. Your biggest threat would be uh, cost, right? So let's say you were to buy the product and the threat is finding the necessary cost, raising the funds to be able to build the welding facilities. Another threat could be after you build the welding facilities, nobody uses it. So let's say you guys use it. Once you have left the school, then nobody wants to use it. And then that's a threat. So all the money is spent, and then you have a white elephant in the school. So that's a threat. Right? Now, again, for SWOT, there are plenty of materials available on the net. So please look at ways to build your SWOT from the internet, from YouTube, and also from Googling what is the meaning of SWOT. But remember, this SWOT is on the process, right? You need to do a strength, weakness, opportunity, threat on your process, not your product. So remember that, right? Finally, in your report, we need to have, or you need to provide with us your recommendation and your conclusion, right? So you explain to us how you closed your project. So the obvious is we managed to complete our project by coming up with a prototype and coming up with a report. Now remember, producing the report for Young Inventors Challenge itself should also be in your project management. So that's, writing a report is part of project management as well, right? It's part of your project, right? So one way, let's say I give you an example of how you can complete. In your conclusion, you can say, we managed to complete our project by producing a working prototype, which we have submitted to the Young Inventors Challenge 2023. And we also produced a report for the Young Inventors Challenge, which has been submitted. Right? So that is your what do you call conclusion, right? And then you also give us some recommendation, right? How to improve your project management, right? So, for example, you can say one of the examples is we had problems. You can say one of the problems we had problems trying to differentiate between activity and deliverables, for example, right? So you can say this is one area of improvement. So you can say in the future, we should have more training on or do more activities where we talk about deliverables and activities so that we are able to make the differentiation. So that can be one of your area for improvement. So the recommendation is always about how do you improve things for something better, right? And you can also have recommendation for your school or for your program or for your project. One of the example would be, let's say, the one I told you, welding example again. There, you can say there is an expert teacher who is able to teach us welding, but we do not have welding facilities. So we recommend to the school to set up welding facilities within the school and have regular welding classes for those who are interested, right? So that can be one of your recommendations. Okay. Now, that's all I have for you today. Now, I wanted to go through very fast because I don't want to bore you too much with all these details. What we are going to do now is, please go through this. We will send you the table of content, right, which has got all these components inside, right? We will send it to you. You go through that. After going through this, maybe what we will do is in a couple of weeks, we'll organize a Q&A for those who are interested or for those who need a Q&A. So during the Q&A, we can have people present and you guys can ask questions, right? So with that, I'd like to complete the training today and I hope you all the best and good luck for the project management competition. Again, one last reminder, this is not compulsory, but we do hope that you will do this particular program because project management is a skill which is very, very highly in demand. So I'm very confident that if you were to participate in this competition, it will help you build your project management skills in the future and become a very good project manager yourselves. Thank you, guys. Bye.